At the behest of the NBA, the team had hired Jerry Colangelo as a special advisor. Colangelo had spent nearly 50 years as an NBA executive. He was as powerful and respected as anyone within the basketball world, and not a person interested in letting others dictate. Hinkie understood exactly what his arrival meant. Hinkie resigned and did so via letter. But this wasn't just another resignation letter. Addressed to the Sixers' equity partners and quickly leaked to the media, it went on for 13 pages. It featured a bullet point about a flightless bird from New Zealand called the moa. It had subsections paying homage to famous investors like Charlie Munger. It quoted Abraham Lincoln twice. That neither Lincoln quote was actually spoken by Lincoln is beside the point. Hey, who among us hasn't been duped by the internet? More important, it offered an in-depth look into the mind of its author. Science is about predictions, Hinkie wrote at one point. A couple sentences later, he quoted a man named Tim Urban, who, Hinkie said, will soon be recognized as one of tomorrow's polymaths. Then, in parentheses, came a piece of advice. Like many of you, Hinkie wrote to the Sixers ownership group, he lives in New York. I'd recommend meeting him for coffee sometime. This suggestion may have not been addressed to me, but I figured why not take Hinkie's advice? After all, I, too, live in New York. Also, and more to the point, Hinkie and Urban had clearly engaged in rigorous scientific and philosophical conversations. Urban, it seemed, was a man who could provide some of the answers I was desperately searching for. But first, I had to figure out who the hell Tim Urban was. I queued up Google and discovered that Urban was the 30-something-year-old author of a long-form blog called Wait But Why. One of his essays, titled How to Pick a Career That Actually Fits You, was more than 15,000 words and featured friendly-looking graphs and charts. Another 14,000-word entry was about cryonics and why they make sense. The posts were littered with references to Urban's relationship with Elon Musk. I found an email address and introduced myself. A few weeks later, an assistant, Alicia, replied, "We should be able to set up a quick 15-minute call for this month," she wrote. I told her that I was actually looking to follow the advice of Sam Hinkie and meet Urban for coffee. "We stick to phone calls or virtual coffee meetings over Skype as much as possible, as it doesn't break up his writing flow as much," she replied, "and they're much easier to schedule ahead of time as Tim's location can be a bit unpredictable this far in advance." Not ideal, but I figured harping on whether the coffee was shared in person or virtually was the sort of thing only non-polymaths worried about. I told Alicia that Skype was great. 2 months later, on a Friday morning, I swapped my usual outfit of sweats for jeans and stopped at the Starbucks across the street from my office to pick up a caramel macchiato. At 10:30, I called Urban on Skype and sipped from my macchiato as the app rang. No answer. I tried again. Still no answer. Finally, on my third call, he picked up. The picture was fuzzy, but he appeared to be wearing a red flannel button-down. "Can you see me?" he asked. "Not really. It's a little delayed. Let me try calling you back." He did. I answered. The picture was still delayed and fuzzy. "Let's try one more time," he said. He did. No change. "How about I call you?" Urban said. I gave him my number. We were now stretching the boundaries of having coffee together. I asked Urban how he met Hinkie. He told me that Hinkie had reached out to him a few times via email. "I know about his work, obviously," he said. "I read his long letter and think he's a pretty awesome dude." He scrolled through his computer and queued up Hinkie's first message, sent March 14th, 2016. He read it out loud. He said that, "My name is Sam Hinkie, and I've become a fan of your writing. We're headed to New York now because we play the Nets tomorrow night, and I wanted to see if you possibly have any time to get together tomorrow. I'd do my best to make it interesting for you." Urban doesn't follow the NBA, but he said he recognized Hinkie's name. "I knew the Sixers were doing a really creative and innovative type of rebuilding," he said. "I'm a fan." Unfortunately, he had no availability the next day. Hinkie tried again a few months later, after resigning. Once again, Urban was out of town. Next, it was Urban's turn to try. He was scheduled to be in Philadelphia around October. By then, Hinkie had moved to Palo Alto. And then he wrote back on November 1st, Urban told me. He read Hinkie's message out loud. "I'll be in New York much of next week. Happy to grab coffee or a meal if your schedule allows. I bet we can find a bunch to kick around." Urban paused for a second and tapped on his keyboard. "Oh shoot, I never saw this and never responded." He seemed genuinely upset. "I can't believe it." I laughed. "So you two never actually..."